let's talk about Nope. So Nope is the third installment in the Peeleverse. The first two being Get Out and Us. And I gotta say, I'm a huge fan of the first one. I loved Get Out. One of the most surprising directorial debuts I'd ever seen. Us was a fan, not as much of a fan. I thought it was a little too complicated, a little too complex just for the sake of being complex. I didn't think it was a bad movie. I just thought it was a little too much for me. That being said, that made this new movie, Nope, probably the most anticipated movie I've wanted to see in a very long time. And I am very glad to say that this movie hit its mark, man. Most of the time. You see, I think one of the biggest reasons that this movie works so well is the way that the mystery and the unknown are handled. And I'll dive a little more deeply into that later, but basically, even for people who've seen the movie, the questions that you have don't always get answered. The story is unique. It's about a black brother and sister named OJ and Emerald Haywood. They own a horse ranch in Southern California, and they're kind of down on their luck right now after their father mysteriously passes away. He doesn't mysteriously pass away, he passes away under mysterious circumstances. That's a pretty solid synopsis of the movie right there, but it definitely shoots into left field, far left field, many times, and I'll explain that a little more in a second. Now, there are going to be spoilers for the movie Nope, mainly because I don't know how to review a movie without spoiling it. So, after their father dies, the siblings begin to notice some strange occurrences and things happening on their property. The UFO stuff starts to happen, all the stuff you saw in the trailer. And then you start to get into the more of the movie that you expect from said trailer. They recruit some angsty, semi-hostile tech guy to come assist them loading up and setting up the cameras because they're convinced that they found a UFO on their property and they want to record it because they want to get what they call the Oprah shot. They want to get this one good shot of the creature that no one else has gotten before, and then they want to sell it. And so they hire this kid, his name's Angel, who gets a lot more screen time than I thought he was gonna get. He plays a far more pivotal role. When you first meet him, you kind of don't really like him. I mean, you don't really know. He's not like a bad guy. He's just kind of, he's kind of a D-bag, I guess. I was surprised at how much they ended up using him. He actually does become pretty integral to the story, and I thought that was cool. And the kid who plays him does a pretty good job. Especially considering who he's working with, the main cast. KekePalmer, in particular, she plays Emerald Haywood. She's the sister of OJ, and she just knocks it out of the park, man. She has an energy that I have not seen from an actor or an actress in quite some time. Now, I'm sure if you've read or watched any reviews on this movie before this one, you will have no doubt heard the same thing I just said. Her energy. People are just talking about her energy. They're losing their minds. They're like, oh my God, she's got all this personality. She's super extroverted. She's funny. And it's all true. She's very, very, very talented, and you can tell, and she kind of carries the movie a little bit. As a matter of fact, if she wasn't in the movie, or that presence, that personality wasn't in the movie, I can safely say it wouldn't be nearly as good as it ended up being. Her brother, OJ, is played by the same main character from Get Out, and I don't remember his name off the top of my head. Daniel Kalyua something? I don't know. He's a much different character. He's quiet, he's introverted, he's the polar opposite of his sister Emerald. So the driving force for this movie is the bad guy. That's what you're here for, that's what you're interested in, and no matter how you cut it, that's what the movie is really all about. Which up until about halfway through, you don't actually know who or what it is, the bad guy. I mean, you know it's a UFO, you saw it in the trailer, but it's more than that. Okay, I'm gonna spoil it here because I said I was going to, but you find out the UFO is the alien, as opposed to being a ship and like there being like a civilization coming to Earth. The UFO itself is the creature, which I thought was a brilliant subversion. I do have some questions about that. They explain a lot of it in the movie, and it makes a lot of sense how it all comes together organically. OJ, for instance, he's a horse trainer. He's literally trained to break horses. That's what he does. So he sees the UFO as an animal. He sees it as a wild animal that he needs to break. So for instance, you can't look at the creature because if you look at it, you're inviting challenge and it'll come and it'll attack out of dominance. It lives in a cloud above their property, and if it feels threatened, it'll come and it'll swoop up and eat horses and people and all the stuff that's been doing. But if it doesn't, it'll just kind of stay passive, somewhat docile. It doesn't really, it's just like a wild animal, which blew my mind. I thought that was a fascinating way to, it was a fascinating take on this genre. I thought it was brilliant. I didn't expect it at all. And the way they did it was really, really good and really creepy. I will say one thing I do believe the movie did kind of skip over were a couple crucial points about the UFO, who in the movie they refer to as jean jackets. Like, there's this one scene where there's this child actor who's now fully grown, and he's trying to use one of OJ's horses that he's purchased from him as I guess bait for his carnival show. But I didn't really get that. I guess he was gonna use the UFO as an attraction. And of course, if you watch the film, you know that scene. Crazy. It just comes and swallows everyone, eats them all up and stuff, and they go inside and they're being digested by it. And that was probably the scariest scene in the movie to me, and very claustrophobic and very well done. That scene to me was kind of what the movie was all about. You know, you have these moments of intense horror and fear interlaced through a pretty upbeat story, actually. Everything else, there's a lot of humor in the movie, there's a lot of jokes, and it feels like it's just a good energy, I guess. Like there's not a lot of melancholy or not everyone's like depressed about what's happening. And a large part of that is, again, because of KekePalmer, you know, the energy that she brings, her personality. She makes you kind of just want to like go, just go get it, go do this. Another thing I didn't understand was the creature didn't feel like a creature to me. It still kind of felt like a ship or just some sort of entity. I mean, I guess the movie purposely kind of glosses over what it is, the UFO. I mean, you can watch it probably 5 or 6 times and still never really know what it is. The producers and the director apparently took a lot of inspiration from like deep sea underwater creatures like jellyfish and squids, and how they, because then you remember in the end of the movie the UFO starts to kind of like, it gets bigger and it starts to expand, looks like a balloon or a jellyfish or a squid or whatever, and it like kind of opens itself up and there's that square eye thing or whatever. All that stuff, like it was very cool imagery, but it just didn't feel like an organic creature. Like there was no fluids, there was no like blood or anything aside from the blood that the creature from the people that the creature ate, which is pretty gnarly when you think about it. There wasn't a lot of, you know, organic material. In fact, even when they're being digested through the creature, through the UFO, it just kind of feels like they're going through like a playpen or like a fun house, you know, like those fun houses you have to kind of walk through. And I wouldn't be surprised if that's what they used for those scenes. I mean, to film them. Anyway, I digress. Kind of going off on a tangent here. Either way, I was very satisfied with this movie. It does drag a little bit in the middle. I could have done without a couple scenes here and there, particularly with the history of the child actor and the chimpanzee, which I don't want to get into because it would just make this video longer, but essentially, if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. I know it was important to the story that they went through the history, but I think they just kind of harped on a little bit too much, and I could have done without some of the exposition in the middle. It did feel like it kind of dragged, especially in the middle, especially. The beginning was better, the middle drags, and the ending is where the movie really picks up steam. It's glorious, it's triumphant, it's not what you expect, I guess. And this movie is all about subverting expectation. The whole marketing ploy of this movie was, again, what is this bad guy? I mean, if you look at all of the posters for the movie, it's everyone just looking up in the sky. So a big marketing thing for it was, you know, just finding out what it is. And Peele could have taken an easy way out and just done some sort of cookie cutter sci-fi alien invasion story that I was kind of expecting. I thought he might throw in some horror elements I hadn't seen before, and that's what was going to make it unique. No, he went the extra mile, and I'm very, very impressed, very pleased and satisfied with the movie. I would love to watch it again right now, especially so I could kind of pick out and see what's going on. Because when you watch something for the first time, you know, you don't really have the wherewithal, at least I don't, to kind of pick up on all the little subtleties and details. And Even though it drags on a little bit, I will say I never felt bored during the movie. There were a couple times it got kind of close, but I will say if you were expecting a straight up horror film, you are going to be disappointed. It is not like that at all. In fact, throughout the movie, I did kind of forget that this was a Jordan Peele flick. It does have those creepy elements and those horror elements, and there's some genuinely good moments of terror and fear, but it's more of it felt more like an adventure almost, like a swashbuckling, not swashbuckling, but just it was more fun than I expected without being cheap or cheesy or resorting to any sort of those cookie cutter tropes that I had mentioned before. He really made this a unique and extremely creative story, and I think it's probably the best installment in Jordan Peele's Peeleverse of movies. I love that, the Peeleverse. It's so funny. It is his little universe that he's creating now. To me, it's the best one so far. So anyway, comment below. Tell me what you thought of the movie. Like the video if you did enjoy it. Subscribe if you'd like to be notified on other movie reviews I'm going to do. This is technically my very first full film review that I've ever done. I'm very glad to have done it on a Jordan Peele movie. Can't wait to come back to this video in a year or two and just cringe